Hey, it's Jason Osborn here again with another episode of the Atomic Impact Podcast. And I have David Carr, founder of Steward Your Business, here on the podcast today. So, David, thank you so much for being on, man. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Jason. Glad to be here today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this, man. And just so curious to hear more about what you do. So, just as a kind of a short intro into what you do,
Yes.
like tell us a little bit more. What do you do? Who do you serve? What do you do in your business?
Absolutely, Jason. Well, I spent over 25 years in the environmental consulting space here in Southern California. That's where I'm at here in the United States. And what I saw was a challenge of people transitioning from a technical person into a people first leader, manager. Management is one thing, and then becoming an actually effective leader. So, really, I went in this journey myself. I struggled through it. And what I realized was, this isn't something you just automatically know. It's something that's learned, developed, and so now I've started to work with business owners. And Steward Your Business came out stewarding your people, your greatest asset. Who are the people that you have, you're overseeing? How you're taking care of those folks? And so how do you support them? How do you support them in their journey? And how do we work better together? And so that really is my passion now, is making sure we're communicating well, we're in alignment, we're supporting one another, we actually get the job done better, more effectively, and can actually build our capacity. So super excited to share a little bit more of that my journey, but that's it in a quick little nutshell, Jason.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
awesome, David. That's cool. Well, one of the things, like obviously, this podcast is to help other business owners, entrepreneurs, and no matter what size they are and what they're
Hmm.
doing. And so, one of the questions I always love to ask is, if you were to go back to the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey, you're able to transport yourself back in time. What would your version of yourself now tell to that young, wide-eyed, ambitious business owner that probably had thought it was easier than what it was going to be, all that
Yep.
stuff? Well,
Yep.
what's one piece of advice that you would say to yourself that would probably help you shortcut some of the biggest mistakes that you made?
Well, you and I, before we started even recording the podcast, Jason, I was mentioning the things that you do with LinkedIn and help you help people. I think if people would lean into that quicker, like get the coaching and the support, the help they need, and don't feel. I mean, sometimes I feel like I should know all this stuff. I should figure this out. I should be smart enough. Instead, you might be smart in certain areas, but other areas you're not, and that's okay. And I think the sooner that you can get somebody to come alongside you, whatever area that is, in your business, whether it's finances, marketing, branding, whatever, legal, just bring them in, invest in them, and you're going to go faster, and you're going to be able to get accomplish things much more quickly than you would just slugging along in your own, trying to get through it, and then feeling frustrated that's not working. It's not working, and it's like, well, there's a reason. There's other people ahead of you in the process that have done this, and learn from them. And to me, that was one of the things that helped me along my journey. I started to invest in myself and coaching myself. And then I'm like, okay, well, I want to make sure that I'm looking at other resources and other people along the way. So that to me would be huge, Jason. Look and don't get out of your own way.
Yeah. I love what you said there. You said something, and I think I'm going to make an assumption here. You probably work with a lot of your clients with this and stewarding their
Hmm.
business and people. But you'd mentioned around making an assumption that you're supposed to know what you're supposed to do, or that you maybe you're embarrassed, or you started up a business and all of a sudden a spotlight shining on an area or lack of skill, and you're like, or if I let people know this, somehow I've failed. What are your whole thoughts on that side of it? Because that's a really key point you brought up.
Yeah, that's part of what, yeah, you're right, Jason. That's what I get into in part is I call understanding your leadership voice. How do I show up? And a lot of people feel like they got to be all of these things, and because they just think that, and then they fail because they can't hold it up. It's not who they naturally are. So some things we can develop certain skill sets, but even when we do, it's still not our natural strengths. And so if we try to keep that up, will inevitably, you just can't. And then what happens is people get into positions because they're like, oh, you're really good at this. They've learned a skill set, they've learned a way of being, but this isn't like their real desire, like where their real purpose is. And then they're like, "Ugh, I hate this. I'm really good at it. I can make really good money, maybe even, but they're like, I'm not feeling fulfilled in what I'm doing. And so to me, it's really important we break it back down and figure out like who are you? Define yourself really clearly. Understand what is I love the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek, but what is your why? Why is your purpose? What do you want to be about? Because you and I, Jason, know if you're just trying to be an entrepreneur, just trying to get in to make money in business, you're not going to make it. Just if that's what's getting you, you're going to look up and not get there. There's days you're not going to be happy about where you're at and all these things. So you have to be really clear about who am I, appreciating who you are. And then again, then you're like, okay, who are the other people I need to bring into my world that can help me? That
Yeah.
and to me it's liberating. But at first it's there is maybe some guilt or shame or I should know this or you know what I mean? And so it's like helping people get past that.
Yeah.
And it takes time. I mean, this is not an overnight thing.
Yeah.
I have a lot of people I talk with. There's imposter syndrome. There's a lot of other things that what there's judging things, and it's like I should be this, and so we get stuck.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, one thing I'd like to just talk about a couple
Yeah.
minutes here, not me, but you.
Yes.
And this was really, I love this thing you talked about. They develop a skill set and then they end up getting into position because of that, but it's not their thing. And I'd love
Mm-hmm.
to hear your thoughts because I think, again, I'm sure you see this all the time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it because stewarding your business, stewarding your people.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on bringing someone into a management position that's really good at a certain thing, and so we assume they're going to be good at management,
Yes.
and then it just ruins everybody.
Yes, 100%, Jason. That some people call that the Peter Principle, but the idea is you elevate somebody to their highest level incompetence. So, hey, you're a great salesperson. Why don't you manage the sales team, right? Well, that's a different skill set. It's, and so and oftentimes they fail miserably, Jason, and then they're miserable.
Yeah,
Like, oh my God, can I just go back to what I really like doing this, and you're asking me to do this now? So this is one thing I do come with business owners. I was just talking with a client yesterday. We're like discerning like who do we bring in? They're doing technical work and now we need to help them do some more management and ultimately leadership. And so they have to be coachable. They want to be able to go in that place. And some people are like, no, I really like doing this and I'm really happy being here. But I feel like sometimes I feel like, well, I guess I should go there, but it's not in their best interest and they're not in the company's best interest. It's just like, oh, we should just fill this position. And I think business owners, that's a big pitfall. Be careful. Don't just put somebody in because they're really good here. You have to do some vetting. And that's what I do too with Jason with business owners. We're looking and seeing like what is their aptitude, how do they show up? And every team's different. So, I have to look at the whole makeup. And so
yeah,
we've got, like I like to say, these different voices, if you will, leadership voices. If it says, we need somebody that's maybe more future oriented, more innovative and creative. That's great. If the person is naturally more, detail oriented checklist, they're like, I want to just follow and implement a process. That's going to be very difficult for them to go from
yeah,
that into this space. It's not that they couldn't. It's just we have to go eyes wide open and says how much of their time they need to be doing this. If it's 10,
yeah,
20%, 30%, okay. But if it's the majority of their time and they were doing something else, that's a recipe for a disaster that you're not
yeah.
everybody's going to be frustrated.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, it's just such a key point that I think oftentimes people overlook. And I think the other thing, I think people sometimes know that when they're running a business, but
Mm-hmm.
they just need someone and they trust people because they're doing
Yeah.
such a great job and bringing someone else in, maybe they don't trust as much or someone from the outside. And so they kind of just shoehorn someone into it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it can be such a mistake uh,
Yes.
in that and set them
Yeah.
actually back as opposed to helping them move forward.
They might even leave. Unfortunately, you set them up and they're just so burnt out. They're like, how do I get out of here? I want to find another job, even if it's making less money. Because somebody's like, well, you're going to make more money. Yes, initially that is. But what I found what really drives people, yes, we always want to make more money. But what's my role? What's my opportunity for development and the experience that I'm having? We're spending a lot of time working. So I worked with a woman that she did integrations. She worked with a very large corporate firm. She originally was a technical person and she moved into this role, made a lot of money, but she didn't realize it till she stepped out of it, the pressure and the life and the stress that was bringing on her. And she's like, I didn't really, yes, I was making a lot of money, but it just wasn't where I wanted to be. And
Yeah,
so I think people are getting clear on that sooner, Jason, what I think is great because we have more options today. You can, and lots of different tools and things out there. But I think the sooner that you can understand that about yourself, the better. But I find that it's difficult for folks to initially articulate this well, who they are, how they show up. And so it takes time. And that's why I work with business owners and their team members so that we
Yeah.
can do it. Like I said earlier at the beginning of the podcast, that helped me go faster, strengthen the team, because the reality is when you have great team members in your experience, that's kind of it sets you apart in the marketplace because you have that, and the longer you keep that team, that core team together that works well, you have a competitive edge over the companies that says, oh well, we're just going to start up and I'll just bring some people. And I think I talk with the talent sourcers and recruiters, and they always tell me, Jason, like, hey, look, we're helping these businesses, but it takes time to integrate these people, and so you want to keep them and help them grow. And that's what I do. I come in as an outside person and say, how can we help you? Because it's a lot, Jason, running the business is a lot. And I'm just focusing on one slice of it, but that's where we figure out, like, where do you need help along your way? If it is your
Yeah.
people and developing that, and you're doing the business development or the branding or the PR or whatever else, that's great. That's where I can come in and help.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's really,
Mhm.
really cool. I want to ask it's a question asked in a different way, just because I'm always curious because it elicits a different response to this.
Yes.
And so, one of the questions I'd like to ask is, what's the biggest at any point in your business, right? What's the biggest mistake that at the time felt like it was just almost business ending, but it ended up being one of the biggest blessings in disguise? And what was the mistake, and what did you learn from that?
Oh, good question. For me, I worked before I started Steward Your Business. I worked with a woman-owned small business, Jason, and it was interesting because she had started that company in 2012, and I came in 2018. And as a woman-owned small business here in California, her goal was to make $1 million in revenue in a year, which we did the first year I came in there. What I realized, though, over the course of the 4.5 years I was there, which we grew from about 25 employees to over 80, ultimately going over 7 million annual revenue, was you have to be able to let go as you grow. Meaning I was doing certain skill sets and things when I came in, when we were doing $1 million in revenue in that first year, and by the time I left, I had to shift. So when I came in, we had a different person come in as a director overseeing some QA/QC and deliverables and things like that. And at first it stung a little bit because I said, hey, we need to move. But I had to realize, you know what? That's not my strength. And somebody else needs to help in that area. And there's other needs in the company that I can help
Mhm.
with. And so I had to look at it in a different way, reframe it. And so I think when people see things, hey, things are changing or ending, look at it as an opportunity. Um, and don't hold on to something that was, maybe you were in that position, or maybe that was a service or a product you were doing, and then there was a lifespan. Maybe that's over and that's done, and that's okay. There's a cycle there. I think we tend to sometimes, maybe, Jason, hold on to things longer. I know I do at times, and I'm like, okay, I should have let that go, but I kept
Yeah.
holding on, and then into my disservice, right? I kept holding on, and it's like I missed out some other opportunities because I was just holding on to this so tightly. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
let that go.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. So just letting go faster
Yes.
oftentimes. Yeah,
Just
yeah,
get out
man,
of your way,
that's
because but we have egos, Jason, right? We have egos of
yep,
like, oh, I had this, what was this? And we have all these stories, nostalgia, whatever, we
yep,
reminisce of like this was, and I'm like, yes, and great, great. And or, but here's another place. And what happens, I think, Jason, too, is we get uncomfortable stepping into, I had to do this over time and time again in that business, even in my own business, stepping into something new. And it's something new when we haven't done it before, we're hesitant because, like, I don't know, I have never done it before, right? When we ever
hmm
rode a bike, it's like, oh my goodness,
yep,
I'm awkward at first. If it is awkward, we've never done it,
yep,
but I think if you and I know, if we lean into this, we'll be better off in the long run. And it's like, hey, this is how we grow. It's part of the
yeah,
process,
yeah,
and don't be afraid of that, right? I think there's people
no,
that are afraid. I think take the initiative, and I think entrepreneurs get this maybe more than others because they see the upside, they see what could be versus the what I call that, between the gap and the gain. They see there's a
yeah,
big
yeah,
gap of like what I could lose versus what I could gain. And so I think hopefully
yeah,
shifting your perspective of what I will gain versus what I'm leaving behind.
yeah. Yeah, which
you
by the
know?
way, that's a very good book for anyone that hasn't
Yeah.
read it. Gap in the Game. It's a
Yeah.
very good book. That's amazing, man. That's amazing. Well, we're almost up on time for the
Yes.
podcast, and some great nuggets in there. So one of the questions I always ask, and I mentioned to you, I'd ask this because I do everything on LinkedIn. We met on LinkedIn as well.
Yes.
What's something you'd either like to achieve more of, or something that you wish LinkedIn would change?
Great question, Jason. I've been on LinkedIn since 2007. I've seen a lot of changes and evolutions. I was even mentioning to you, I really liked you have a great mini course, by the way. For those of you who haven't checked it out, go check out Jason's mini course on LinkedIn. But one of the things really, you know, this I don't think LinkedIn can change this. I think I want people that users that are LinkedIn. If you're a user on LinkedIn and you want to build a relationship with Jason, you are very intentional inviting me to the podcast, learning more about me, which I very much appreciated. And I'm the same way. I'm about building the relationship first. So if you're on LinkedIn and you're messaging somebody and their new connection or something like that, what I would really strongly advise is build the relationship. Do not say, "Hey, I've got a service for you. I've got something for you today." And I'm like, I didn't ask for the service. You're assuming some things. You don't know anything about me. You haven't even looked really at my LinkedIn. I can tell you haven't even looked at my LinkedIn page. So if you're going to message somebody, make it personal. Take the time and don't just throw things at the wall. Because that is, I mean, I get them every day, Jason, and it's sad. I look
Yep.
at this and I'm like, I guess I'll get somebody, but I'm like, you guys are really missing the boat here. So do what Jason does, and you've made it very personal, Jason, and I so appreciate that, and thanking you for having me on the podcast today.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's what you said, and it from what I'm hearing you say about what you do in your business, well,
Yeah.
it's all about building that relationship, right?
Yep.
If you don't, this whole stewardship side, you have to build a relationship. In marketing,
Hmm.
you have to build a relationship. So yeah, it's I think we're all trying to do our part to improve that in different areas. You're doing it within businesses. I'm doing it within people's LinkedIn marketing. So
Yes.
that's awesome, man. Well, listen,
Absolutely.
I know that there will be people listening to this, and that they might want to get more information on what you do, or just find you or anything like that. So, what's the best place for people to find where you are, maybe connect with you?
Absolutely, Jason. Well, of course, you and I are on LinkedIn, so you can look up David W. Carr on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect with you, with your listeners. I've got some great resources I'm happy to share with them, absolutely free. So just, message me, let me know that you saw me on Jason's podcast. I'm happy to share them with you. Of course, stewardyourbusiness.com. I'm all the fun, social platforms and all that kind of stuff. So connect with me there. I would love to hear from you, and I appreciate you having me here on the podcast, Jason.
Amazing. Hey, it's
Yeah.
my pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.